Fear and anxiety, they are as universal as love and joy, yet they often go unspoken and misunderstood. Imagine standing in a bustling crowd where each person carries an invisible suitcase. This suitcase holds their fears, their worries, their anxieties. Some suitcases are heavier than others, but every single person has one because anxiety is a universal experience. It's not confined to a specific age, culture, or walk of life. From the high-powered executive in London to the rice farmer in rural China, anxiety is a common thread that weaves through our collective human experience. But why is this so? Well, at its core, anxiety is a survival mechanism. Picture our ancestors living in a world full of real and immediate dangers. A rustling in the bushes could be a predator. A storm on the horizon could mean starvation. They needed that quick shot of adrenaline, that heightened state of alertness, to survive. That's anxiety in its most primal form. A response to perceived threat, designed to protect us. Fast forward to today, our world is vastly different, but our brains are essentially the same. The threats have changed. We're not typically running from predators or worrying about the next meal. Instead, we're navigating complex social dynamics, dealing with work stress, and grappling with a 24/7 news cycle that constantly bombards us with new things to worry about. Sometimes this survival mechanism can go awry. The alarm system gets stuck in the on position and we're left in a state of constant worry, even when there's no immediate threat. This is when anxiety becomes chronic and it can severely impact our quality of life. Yet despite its prevalence, anxiety is often misunderstood, stigmatized, and swept under the rug. It's seen as a sign of weakness, something to be ashamed of. But it's time we change that narrative. It's time to shed light on this silent companion that accompanies us all: anxiety. Anxiety isn't just a feeling. It's a complex response, a symphony of reactions that our bodies and minds orchestrate. Picture this: a classic grand orchestra with each instrument playing its part in harmony. Now imagine if the trumpets, violins, and percussion suddenly started playing out of sync. It would create a cacophony, wouldn't it? That's what happens when anxiety kicks in. The harmony in our bodies and minds is disrupted, resulting in feelings of unease, worry, and fear. Let's delve a little deeper into this. Biologically, anxiety triggers our body's fight or flight response. This ancient survival mechanism sends adrenaline pumping through our veins. Our heart rate quickens, our palms get sweaty, our stomachs churn. It's our body's way of preparing us for perceived danger. But when there's no actual threat in sight, this response can feel out of place and overwhelming. Psychologically, anxiety affects our thoughts and feelings. It's like a filter that tints everything in shades of worry and apprehension. It magnifies potential threats and minimizes our ability to cope with them. It's a constant, nagging sense of dread that something bad is about to happen. There are different types of anxiety disorders, each with its own unique characteristics. Generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, and phobias, to name a few. They differ in what triggers the anxiety, how long it lasts, and how it impacts daily life. But we won't delve into specifics here, as each one deserves its own spotlight. What's important to understand, though, is that anxiety isn't a one-size-fits-all condition. It's different for everyone. Some people may feel a mild unease, others may experience debilitating fear. It's a spectrum, and where we land on that spectrum can vary from day to day, even moment to moment. It's a dance between our minds and bodies, a dance that sometimes loses its rhythm. But remember, even in the midst of the most chaotic dance, there's always a chance to find our footing, regain our rhythm, and dance again. Why does anxiety creep into our lives? What stirs this unsettling guest? Anxiety, like a shadow, can follow us silently and subtly. It's not always clear what beckons it, but there are common triggers we can identify. Stress, for instance, is a frequent catalyst. When we're under pressure, our bodies respond by releasing stress hormones, priming us for a fight or flight response. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism, but in our modern world, it often means our systems are on high alert, even when there's no immediate danger. Beyond stress, trauma can also be a significant contributor to anxiety. Experiencing a traumatic event can leave an emotional imprint, leading to heightened anxiety. This could be a single significant event, or it could be the cumulative effect of many smaller traumas over time. Environmental factors too play a role. Our surroundings, lifestyle, and even diet can influence our anxiety levels. For example, Living in a noisy, chaotic environment can be anxiety-inducing. Likewise, a lifestyle marked by poor sleep, lack of exercise, or unhealthy eating habits can also lead to increased anxiety. Let's not forget about genetic predisposition. Just as we inherit physical traits from our parents, we can also inherit a susceptibility to anxiety. If your family has a history of anxiety disorders, you may be more prone to experiencing anxiety yourself. However, it's worth noting that these factors don't operate in isolation. More often than not, it's a combination of these elements that stir the pot of anxiety. You might have a genetic predisposition, and then a stressful event triggers your anxiety. Or perhaps you've experienced trauma, and your environment isn't conducive to healing, thereby heightening your anxiety. The roots of anxiety are complex and intertwined, much like the branches of a gnarled old tree. It's not as simple as pointing to one cause or another, but understanding these potential triggers can help us better navigate the shadowy landscape of anxiety, and perhaps shine a light on our unsettling guest. Anxiety may start as a whisper, but it can grow into a roar that drowns out the rest of our lives. Anxiety, like a stone cast into a pond, sends ripples through our lives. It doesn't just affect our minds, it affects our bodies, our relationships, and the overall quality of our lives. These effects are not just minor disturbances, they can be severe, far-reaching, and deeply disruptive. Let's start with our mental health. When anxiety takes hold, it's like a fog that clouds our thoughts, our judgment, our capacity to focus. It can lead to a constant state of worry, a perpetual cycle of what-ifs that keeps us up at night, robbing us of peace and tranquility. Our physical health can also take a hit. Anxiety is known to cause headaches, muscle tension, and sleep disturbances. It can lead to feelings of exhaustion, making everyday tasks feel like climbing mountains. More seriously, chronic anxiety can contribute to conditions like heart disease and gastrointestinal problems. Our relationships too can bear the brunt of this invisible enemy. Anxiety can lead to irritability, causing friction with loved ones. It can cause us to withdraw, to isolate ourselves in an attempt to manage our fears. But this only serves to deepen our sense of loneliness, creating a vicious circle that's hard to break. And then there's the overall quality of our lives. Anxiety can turn the world into a place of threats and dangers, real or imagined. It robs us of the joy of living in the moment, of appreciating the beauty and wonder that life has to offer. Instead, we're stuck in a future filled with doom and gloom, a future that may never come to pass. The effects of anxiety are indeed far-reaching, but it's important to remember that they don't define us. They are not an inevitable part of life. They are not something we just have to live with. Anxiety's ripples can touch every shore of our lives, but remember, ripples can also herald change. Anxiety isn't just a tormentor, it's also a messenger, a signal that something needs attention. Have you ever considered that? It's a bit like a fire alarm. It can be loud, disruptive, and can cause quite a fright, but it's there to alert us to a potential danger. In the same way, anxiety can serve as an internal alarm system. It's a signal from your mind and body that something isn't quite right. It's a cry for help, a plea for you to pay attention. But how many of us actually listen? Or do we simply try to switch off the alarm, to silence the noise? Imagine if we approached anxiety differently. Instead of turning away, what if we turned towards it? What if we listened to what it was trying to tell us? What might we discover about ourselves, about our lives, about the changes we need to make? You see, listening to your anxiety doesn't mean surrendering to it. It doesn't mean becoming its prisoner. It means acknowledging its presence, understanding its message, and using that information to guide your actions. It's about recognizing that your anxiety is part of you, but it doesn't define you. It's a chapter in your story, not the whole book. We often view anxiety as an enemy, something to be conquered or eliminated. But what if we saw it as a guide, a teacher, an ally? What if we stopped fighting and started learning? What if we stopped running and started listening? Listening to your anxiety is not about finding immediate solutions or quick fixes. It's about understanding, about empathy, about compassion, for yourself and for your experience. It's about acknowledging that you're human, that you're fallible, and that it's okay to feel anxious. It's about accepting the discomfort, the uncertainty, the fear, and using it as a springboard for growth and transformation. Anxiety speaks a language of its own, and it's up to us to learn its dialect. It's a conversation that could lead to transformation. So, are you ready to listen?
Unleash your potential with Envoy Coaching. Tackle anxiety, stress, and burnout with our unique blend of online coaching and hands-on equine therapy sessions. We're dedicated to creating your inner power. Subscribe, like, and reach out at envoricoaching@gmail.com.